we made some repairs on it in Yokosuka, Japan. We went back to Yokosuka, Japan. And then then we came stateside to San Diego and then to Hunters Point in San Francisco. We repaired it, and it took about 6 months, and we were ready to go again. But before we went again, my sisters had arranged for us to visit the city of Mexicali. We went to Mexicali, my sisters and I, and there I saw for the first time in, I would say 15 years, I saw my father. And he told me who he was and started crying and all that, the usual thing. I reminded him that men did not cry, as he had told me before when I was 5. And very, very touching type of story, but you know, it's great. It's great. It's touching. It makes you grow. It makes you grow. Everything that I have ever done in my life.
Well, before you leave that point, Abe, it does give me chills when you mention meeting your father after all these years. It does give me goosebumps.
You know, it hurts, but what it does, it makes you grow out of that, out of the fact that you were dependent upon the shadow of your father being there at all times. It cuts that relationship off, cuts it off completely. And all you can do is wish a person like that luck. And if you can help him along the road someplace, you help him. But you know, it's just one of those things that happen.
Well, that's a wonderful attitude. That's a wonderful attitude. How long were you in the service?
I was in the service with Naval Reserve and on active duty in the Navy 4 years.
Okay, Abe, let me ask you kind of related to this, but we had World War II, ended in 1945, and you participated in the Korean War, and you were there for several years. What effect did World War II and the Korean conflict have with our guys that came from, that served from Colton, and they came back to Colton, and did they have a different attitude, like I paid my dues, and therefore I'm going to improve my community, and I'm going to run for office, and I'm going to, you know, I'm going to go to school and get my degree? What impact did those wars have on our Mexican-American kids that went into the service?
Very much so, very much so. I would not say that most of them were going to go to school. Some of them did, but what it did was give us a certain amount of freedom. Before Colton, while we moved from the riverbed up to the main streets of Colton, we could not enjoy the city as a whole.
Well, you mentioned the main street of Colton. We're talking about South Colton, the main streets of South Colton.
Colton was divided.
Because we were a segregated community. We had South Colton, Mexican town, and we had North Colton, which was across the railroad tracks.
South Colton, there's basically two parts in Colton, North and South Colton. Not anymore. It changed, believe me. It changed. But we have North and South Colton all being one Colton. we still have the four sections in Colton. La Reserva,
You're talking about barrios.
Barrios.
Okay.
La Reserva.
And where was La Reserva
Calle
located?
Cinco.
Where was La Reserva located?
What's that?
Where was La Reserva located?
La Reserva was that area from N Street and 5th Street to the northwest area of town.
Up to 3rd Street?
I'm sorry,
Up to
up to
3rd?
3rd Street,
Okay.
that bordered on the cement plant property.
Okay.
La Calle Cinco was from N Street, 5th Street, to the southwest part of Colton, all the way to La Cadena where it joins the river. Then there was the Calle Siete, which was basically N Street to 5th, to the railroad or 5th Street, north, and then to the northeast part of the city to the river. That was called N Street. And then we have Las Palomas.
That's where I'm from.
Yes, yes, that I know very well. Las Palomas was, I built a park there.
I don't.
Las Palomas was, from 8th Street, correct me if I'm wrong, 8th Street to the railroad tracks on the north to Congress Street to the
South.
to the south, all the way to the river.
Right, right.
Great areas. In fact, my wife and I get up at least every morning that I get up after I do a little workout and stuff like this. We take a ride and go down and see if all the barrios and all the sections of Colton are still there. They're still there, and they're getting more and more beautiful by the day. Or maybe I'm just getting a little bit older.
You know, Abe,
But it's great.
could we pan, James, could we pan the camera over to Joe Beltran and her daughter Candy?
My wife, Liz, my
They're
wife,
with us today.
my wife, Joa.
Did you get a good picture of them, James?
Yeah.
Okay, so you said hi. Okay, good. All right, now back to the main person, and here we go.
Joa, by the way, Joe, my wife, was, when I came back from Korea in '54, I was very active in the Congress of Community Clubs.
And what was that?
The Congress of Community Clubs with different organizations in Colton, and we all formed one, and we used to, Colton was great for las fiestas patrias.
Okay,
We used to have the 16th of September in Colton, and we had a parade every year. And my wife and I, they volunteered us to organize the parade for the 16th of September. And my wife and I took it, took it on, and we organized the parade. It was a great parade. Beautiful, beautiful. We did a lot of those things. And then at that time, Colton was moving. Nowadays, it's sad to say that it's not, there's not too many Coltonites left.
yeah.
Let's put it that way.
Now, when did you meet Joe, and how did you meet Joe?
Oh, God. We've been married, excuse me, how many years?
60 years.
We've been married 60 years, so it's been
Okay.
a long, long time. You know, I'm 81 years old, and sometimes I don't remember that very well.
But you were my bus driver.
Excuse me.
You were Joe's bus driver?
Yes, I was working for the high school. You know, when I went to work for the high school, what I was, when I was, well, this is a story all on its own. When I was in high school, I took the usual courses, college preparatory courses.
We're talking about Colton High School.
Colton High School. I took the usual college preparatory courses. That lasted about, no more than 6 months. Because the teachers that we used to have were not very receptive to the Latino students. I remember the teacher sitting there, and apparently he used to get the Examiner newspaper, Los Angeles Examiner, 2 or 3 days ahead of time. And he would sit 2 or 3 Mexican Americans to the left of the room, and the rest of the class, algebra class, to the right. And he would sit there reading the newspaper, and every once in a while, when an Anglo would ask him a question, he would respond. I'm sorry to say that we never did get too much of a response from him. So that basically drove me into the mechanical arts area, where I learned how to rebuild engines, do brake jobs, do drafting, a lot of drafting. I was a great draftsman. And so that I went through school with majoring in the mechanical arts area instead of the ABCs. When I graduated, the principal at that time, Don McIntosh, asked me if I wanted to drive a bus, seeing as I had done the upkeep on most of the buses in the fleet. And I told him yes, that I would like to drive. He says, remember, if you do well, there will be other Mexican Americans that might have jobs like this. I promised him that I would do the best that I could, of course. But I used to have this bus run, and who do I meet? This little redhead, and of course she took to me. Right away she went wild over me. And here we are. You know, after I came out of the service, we got married. We We moved to Colton. We lived in Colton for about 6 months.
What date did you get married? Date, your wedding date? Joe?
June the 6th.
1953. He was still in the Navy.
Oh, we're still in the Navy, okay.
Yeah. Okay, so you've got it. Now, we moved to Bloomington because over there it was free country. You could live any place you wanted to. And we lived over in Colton over in Bloomington for about, 2 years or so. And then we decided that we wanted to move to Colton, and we were looking for a house over in Colton. And Joe was house hunting. And she comes back, she says, oh, great, we've got a place. We've got a place to live. We can buy this house. I told him that we'd be over there Saturday to sign up sign up in order to buy the house. We went over there on a Saturday morning, and when we got there, the real estate person asked her who I was. She says, well, that's my husband. Oh, he started shaking and going into convulsions. He says, we can't allow this. We cannot allow Mexicans to live over here in this area. Needless to say, I went back to N Street, and my Aunt Candy and my mother gave me shelter there. We lived there for the next couple of years.
So that was a tough blow. Going to, and what was the address, Candy? Do you remember? Where was the house located?
It was over off of Rancho, in those houses around Citrus and north of there.
Yes.
Yeah, they were just cement block,
Yeah.
little shacks, you know. There was nothing. But that would get us into the areas of 1956 or so. But the things that the Anglos were doing against the Mexican Americans started way before that. I remember that when I was maybe 15, 16 years old, we would try to go to the municipal pool, but we could only go on Sundays because they cleaned it on Mondays. They cleaned all the grease out after the Mexicans went swimming there on Sunday.
What about the theater, the new Colton and the Hubs Theater?
In the new Colton Theater and the Hub City Theater, you would sit to one side of the theater, and the Anglos would sit to the other side. When you went home up East Street and then turned on La Cadena to go down to South Colton, there was a police station at approximately 9th Street and I Street. There was in the old police station with a jail there. And I remember there was an alleyway type of situation there that